Okay, we're live, but we won't do the intro yet. We will wait. So we have a few friends over here, but yeah, this is us. Um, how do I? Okay, I just wanted to. Okay, I'll share on the Discord, and I guess I share on Twitter, and we'll be good. Okay. Okay. That should be good. Give me a little second and we'll do some intros and stuff. I have to take this one out. Okay, that's enough, I guess. Anyway, whoever is here. Okay. Hello everyone and welcome to our post-event breakdown. This is the power couple. It's me, Feño, and we have my former co-host of the fall preview, the one and only Dan Albert. How are you doing, Dan?
That's disgruntled former employee Dan Albert to you. Yeah, I'm doing swell. Had a good weekend. Shockingly, 317 was not the highlight of it as far as my interests, but it was a good close second.
Hey, that's good because 317
very
was
good card.
Like very good. Yeah. Did you watch the whole thing?
I watched. I caught the first fight of the card. I caught another one, and then I showed up for the entire main. But then I caught up afterwards, so I can say something about every fight except probably Tracy Cortez's because I spaced out when I rewatched it.
Okay, yeah, it was okay to be honest. But obviously, I'm guessing that most people will tune in for this one because you want to hear our thoughts about the opener that was a heavyweight bout. no, you guys want to listen about Topuria and Oliveira. Obviously, it was a short fight. There's still, I think, we have some interesting things to say about it, but we won't be talking like for a whole hour about it because there wasn't much to it. But we'll be talking about the rest of the card and also both fighters where they are in their careers. We get to that. Hello, please, Ken, my dude. Happy to see you around. So let's get right into the main event. So UFC 317, just your standard Las Vegas pay-per-view, headlined by former featherweight champion Ilia Topuria against former lightweight champion Charles Oliveira instead of Arman Tsarukyan for whatever reason. The reason is that Dana White hates Tsarukyan because he ruined an event. So it was still a very compelling fight. Like going into the fight, I guess the main concern for a lot of us that watch and talk about fights was the place that Oliveira is right now into his career, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Oliveira is a little past it, but he's still obviously like incredibly offensively potent. And I mean, he on paper had very specific routes to victory here to enforce. And on paper, he checked a lot of boxes that you would want for someone to fight against Topuria, regardless of whether Topuria was going to have trouble translating with the weight differences. And I would actually say Oliveira pushed for a good majority of those things from the get-go.
Yes, actually, I agree with that. I think there are some takes out there, especially from very beloved by analyst fighter Paddy Pimblett, who said that Charles Oliveira was an idiot to fight Topuria like that. But I think that pressuring for Oliveira, to be quite honest, was like his best shot at victory. He was not going to win a fight moving on the outside because that's just not who he is. Maybe you could say that he could have worked that during the whole camp, but you can understand Oliveira is like 35 years old. He has like plus 40 professional MMA fights. He's not going to change the whole thing around for this one. I think when you're in that place of your career, you gotta operate with what you have. I don't know if you agree with that point.
Yeah, I think at this point, like 35, I mean, if you're not already a finished product, it's a bit hard to invent yourself, especially with someone with Oliveira's like mileage and career or trajectory. It is pretty insane that somebody who is so offensively based and so devastating has continued to remain pretty devastating after all the fights he's had and all the damage he's taken. I mean, he really did come into his own a few years ago. He's probably as comfortable as he's ever going to be. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, even in that 3 minutes, he still looked like a top lightweight.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, this might be a weird take. By the way, James Kendrick, hello. This might be a strange take, but I think that Oliveira here, to me, he looked more of an elite talent here in these few minutes that he lost than what he looked at places against Michael Chandler in a fight where he was dominating. Because one of my concerns going into this fight is that Oliveira did not look as dynamic in that Chandler fight. I think he looked a bit faster over in this one, to be quite honest.
It's something I had in the back of my mind. The only other explanation, if he wasn't regressed, was he was playing with his food to get like 5 rounds of experience because he hadn't really gone that distance before.
Yeah,
that wasn't pushing. But I mean, I do think even in the Sarukian fight, there were some things that were kind of a little less potent than he used to be.
Yeah, but I think he looked dangerous. If you go back and watch the fight, Oliveira looked like he had some pop. Obviously, Topuria is like a very aware fighter, and obviously he has a decent chin. But a lot of having a good chin has to do with being aware and seeing shots coming. But actually, like Topuria didn't got hit super clean a lot in this fight. For example, there's this clip of Oliveira catching him with an elbow. I'm pretty sure that he caught him well, like with the forearm. So it was like, don't get me wrong, that still fucking sucks, but it's not the same as getting like nailed with the point of the elbow, right? And then the uppercut. The uppercut looked a lot worse live. During the replay, I caught that Topuria was like sidestepping. It was like more of a glancing shot, and Topuria still felt that one. So I felt like Charlie still looked pretty dangerous in this one.
Yeah, I think how Oliveira approached it was exactly what he should have done. Because, like, Oliveira doesn't have the nuance on the back foot and can kind of just be drawn into things. The only real danger on the back foot is, like, his intercepting, like, collar ties, reactive takedowns, and, like, that front teep. That is one thing, that last part, I do wish we got to see how that would have played out if he used that front teep a little more. But, like, I think getting in Topuria's face right from the get-go was a good idea because he still got to the areas of danger for Topuria in that fight pretty quickly. It's just Topuria ended up being able to navigate those areas a lot better than we expected, but also just he showed he had answers there at minimum.
Yeah, there was a few things. I feel like there was a few interesting things that on my preview I talked about. Collar ties were going to be like important in this fight for sure. And immediately, because if you watch the fights, I ended up never posting the clips, but I posted a few clips of Topuria exiting the clinch against Volkanovski and against Holloway, exiting collar ties. And usually what he does is like he gets low, goes with a few body shots, blades his stance, and then tries to exit safely. Here we had a collar tie immediately in the first exchange of the fight. Topuria goes with a wide left hook and pivots and goes out immediately. Like you can tell that he drilled into fight camp. Like we are not staying in collar ties at all.
Yeah, it's a good
And
infighting tactic too. It really shows like the boxing background in him too,
yeah,
as well. Because like if you're going to like apply collar ties, the idea is that you pull them down, kind of. But in the process of pulling them down, you're kind of trying to break their posture or push them back. So Topuria turning them, well, like constantly moving them around is a great idea. In order to get out of those
the
consistently.
exit was a bit scary because like he
Mhm.
did a good job of like lowering his level with his leg first, but he's still like docked down. Like if Oliveira were to go for a knee in that moment, obviously it was a very fast sequence, and you gotta pick
Mhm.
your like risk that you're going to take.
Yeah.
But yeah, but there was like 3 instances of collar ties during this fight, and Topuria was like very quick to disengage. Like he
Yeah.
was not interested in exploring that distance in this
Yeah, I
fight.
think like if you were to point to something Topuria kind of has the habit of doing, he tends to headhunt a lot more neutral space, ace as opposed to going to the body. And so that does lead to the incident of him going into those tie-ups quite a bit for that to happen. But it shows that he's aware of that and has an idea of how to quickly get out of those situations with discipline.
Yeah, so Oliveira then he didn't have like super easy access to the collar tie, so they were like engaging in boxing range for during the most of the fight, and it was clear that the idea for Oliveira was to fight the jab of Topuria with leg kicks, and he was very committed to attacking with leg kicks, even when he was getting hit with the jab. But I feel like during the jab leg kick exchange that there were a lot during the fight. Topuria was getting the better of it. His
Yeah.
jab was landing with a bit more power than the leg kicks that Oliveira were landing.
Yeah, I published a big tech article breakdown my first in a few years on Topuria a few weeks ago, and two really specific things that stand out that were really relevant to this fight was, well, this is relevant to most of Topuria's fights, is his jab. It's very hard to punish that jab clean. It just, part of it's just because he's good at disguising his steps as he jabs, but it's also just one of those jabs that comes out in the form of an up jab, and those are typically harder for people to punish, even though conventionally you wouldn't think that. The other thing about Topuria is he has a great idea of how to do an offbeat rhythm with that jab, so
Yeah,
people can't really read it. And so even if you're trying to counter it, he's also still like doing little things like stepping in on you. And so even though Oliveira tried to make it like a my kick is going to beat your jab, it more so just became either we're evened out or Topuria would step in with the jab to kind of force Charles to reset.
yeah.
And
And also,
so,
like, also it's something that Topuria was doing here is that because Topuria sometimes in other fights we've seen like just jabbing from his stance or stepping into jabs, but what he was doing here was like that he was like getting into the right distance and he was like split stepping into the jab, and that was that was taking a little bit of a steam off the leg kicks because they were not landing in the place that Oliveira was like was supposed to. I mean, he was intending to land, so obviously those still hurt, but it's not the same when you land with the hardest part of your shin behind the knee, as opposed to when you're like, because when I say split step, he was like opening his stance, like but staying like keeping his hips in place and taking his lead foot a little bit forwards and his back foot a little bit backwards, so it's splitting his stance. And he was doing that with his jab. He was hiding that because he was like, again, not doing as as obvious as in the Max Holloway fight, but there was still a lot of like bouncing back and forth within his stance in this one, especially because when he went to parry the front kick, he was like loading his weight into his rear foot, probably to come back with the right hand or the left hook. So that was interesting because he was like doing like the little like back and forth, and as you said, like he breaks the rhythm. So when you think he's going back, he goes like split step and he attacks with the jab, and that was very surprising for Oliveira.
yeah. the other thing is like in regards to kicks themselves, like first and foremost, it should be said that everybody should be trying to kick Topuria no matter what.
Yeah,
But it's proven to be easier said than done because he has a couple of specific answers for them. One is we just said this. He's good at reading them with pairing off the hop step or leaning back on his rear foot. He's also very good at stepping in on them, which is he showcased with the jab in this
yeah,
fight. And it's constantly something that really, really checkmated Volkanovski when they fought quite a bit. Because he would force out Volkanovski to try to kick first off of his punches and vice versa. And so every time Volk like stepped into a kick, he was still resetting his stance. That's when Topuria stepped in on him. And so Topuria recognizes how dangerous kicks are to him and likes to just constantly step in. Now, should you still be kicking at Topuria? 1000% yes. Like you need mix-ups to get to him pretty
yeah.
consistently. The
In
other
fact,
problem,
I was surprised that Oliveira did not try to kick high here because Volkanovski was like obviously he was not hitting Topuria with the high kicks, but he was like keeping him busy and controlling a bit of the initiative with the high kicks during the fight, and he threw quite a few. Actually, the first strike that Volkanovski threw against Topuria was a high kick. So I was kind of surprised that Oliveira didn't like test the waters with that one.
yeah. I think Oliveira had the right idea though, because even though his kicks weren't getting through, he was still like pushing Topuria around. It's just he couldn't stop the jab from like drawing his defenses out enough. Because the jab really played so much havoc on the rhythm of this fight here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so one other thing I'll point to is like so with Topuria's like how Topuria typically deals with aggressors is even though like he does hop step back, that's not like an indication of like a linear retreat being bad at all. And a lot of people will make that mistake with him. It's only a problem if he's hop stepping into the fence, which doesn't really happen that often. But here he showcased like a lot of good lateral defensive work using the jab as kind of a crux for it. Because if anyone was going to be able to cut him off and punish him in this division, it was going to be Oliveira. And here he at least showed that he's been competently thinking about like that lateral like movement on top of like using it to make sure the opponent can't get over aggressive and he can back them off.
Yeah, for sure. Although obviously like the parts that looked the more sketchy for Topuria were when he was put on the back foot for brief moments in this fight, but there it was still very clear that he had some tools, and we've seen that in the past, right? We saw like some prolonged exchanges periods where he was on the back foot against Josh Emmett, for example. And he has some like nice tools, especially he's very responsible with his footwork when he's jabbing. He's usually like pivoting with his jabs, sidestepping. So he has some tools, and the jab allows him to like not be corralled against the cage as easily. And he obviously can always like take a half step back and threaten with the big right hand, and that usually like gains him some time.
Yeah.
Let me get back with some of the comments. We have Ghost in the house. He says a split step into the jab. Interesting since he was a split stepping cross countering with Max. Yeah, actually, he was using that a lot more for the jab here. Hello Nash. Hello Matua. So yeah, and then the end of the fight comes as like, I feel like Oliveira starts like, okay, I'm losing this at jabbing range. I need to like do something. And he like goes for the big right hand. Topuria split steps again. Goes with the like the fake left hook that kills the right hand of Oliveira and lands this like loopy right hand that puts him out. He lands a left hook behind it that lands to the neck, and obviously that like super hurt, but he was out already. It was like a one punch knockout for sure. And then the follow-up.
One
Oh,
one thing I really liked, even though we pointed out like the whole elbow thing earlier, like I did read before this fight going into it saying like Oliveira needs to stand his ground 100%. And one thing he's particularly vicious at is how spiteful his counters are. He's not an amazing counterpuncher, but he's a great spiteful one on it picking his spots. And so that like shot right there immediately told me, okay, one of them is probably going to get finished in the next few minutes if it goes like this. But then like Topuria just like takes that slight step out and then shifts into that left hook to like back Oliveira off slightly just enough to prevent any follow-ups. But I think like right there, that sequence kind of taught Oliveira, okay, I can exchange with you, but it's going to be really dangerous. So I need to look for the collar ties. And then eventually that kind of didn't work. So he shot for the takedown and so on and so forth.
yeah, the entry. I mean, the timing for that entry for the takedown was pretty good actually. He that one of the few like super clean reads of the jab that Oliveira got, and he ducked under. He went for his classic like tall man through the box takedown, where he tries to run you over for like a waist body lock, and when that doesn't work, he usually goes underhook knee tap. He was not successful with either of them, so he drove to the fence. Very strong double underhooks. Topuria did a very good job of staying low, just like not allowing his weight to be distributed, using the fence to his advantage there because he was like leaning on the fence, staying heavy. And the moment that Oliveira was like a bit loose with one of the underhooks, he dug for an under. They ended up 50-50. Oliveira tries to circle him, pinch the side of the overhook, and try to get like an outside trip, I think. And Topuria just follow with the hips, plants with the free hand, uses the other hook, ends up on top position. And then he goes for that beautiful like crucifix immediately, and that was like just for the style points. I feel. Oliveira obviously showed up that doesn't matter if you get that kind. I mean, doesn't matter if you get those kind of positions because he's so resourceful. He moved into the legs immediately. Topuria was able to get to top position. Nothing ended up happening, but it was like I think that even though like Oliveira looked like the dangerous guy in that sequence, to me it was Topuria sending the message like uh, takedown is not game over for it's not game over for me,
Yeah,
man.
it's not free, and also him competing that physically with Oliveira, who's historically pretty physical guy, who usually if he gets his arms locked like that, you're going for a ride. That's pretty impressive in of itself. Live, I was a little more impressed with like kind of how he ended up on top, but in on rewatch, it wasn't really. It was a little messy on Oliveira's side, but it's still like being able to cut through Oliveira's guard like that is still pretty crazy.
Yeah, on my
What?
preview I said that Topuria needed to land like if he got on top, he really needed the ground and pound because one thing that we've seen on the last few years is that Oliveira is not the same when he feels like he has to be scared of the takedown. He becomes like a different fighter, and in that sense, he's kind of similar to someone like Dustin Poirier. With the difference that obviously Oliveira is a much better grappler, so the cases in which he's scared of getting taken down are are way fewer than for Dustin, but it's kind of the same concept, right?
Yeah.
That you're like a balls to the wall striker, but when you think that you gotta be worried about the takedown, you're kind of different. We saw that against, especially against in the Sarukian fight for Oliveira, where
Yeah. One.
Sarukian was like Sarukian never looked like he would win a pure striking match against Oliveira, but once he had that takedown threat established, he was like backing up Oliveira with the jab because he was thinking about the takedown.
Yeah. One interesting thing that I wish we could have seen play out a little more is I do think Topuria can be at risk of being a bit passive with his back to the wall on the fence when he's pitted there in the clinch. However, we didn't really get to see how that would play out because he was like doing the like I think if memory serves me right, the overhooks to Oliveira's underhooks to kind of stifle that. So if Oliveira attempted to break the body lock, it wouldn't really have mattered too much. But that was definitely something I wish I could have seen, like how he could have coped with Oliveira's like wall and maul tactic.
Yeah, I was very interested in seeing that actually. Like I would have wondered instead of the takedown, what would happen if like Oliveira tried to like get some head pressures, try to stand him up, and go with
Mhm.
nasty knees. I
Yeah,
really
that's
wanted to see more knees actually.
yeah. One thing, and we're probably jumping ahead a bit here, is I do think that makes Makachev still very interesting because Makachev, like, he's willing to like use like turning the same way Topuria does with like clinching in order to land successful like transitions and attacks. So he's not like the wall and maul kind of guy, but his clinch still offers a very interesting kind of thing that Topuria didn't face here.
Yeah, and also like the thing about Makhachev is that a lot of like obviously he's a very good like pure grappler, but in the context of MMA, he uses knees so much because he loves countering knees, going for like turning and the knee tap, that kind of stuff. We saw a lot of that against Volkanovski and against Sarukian, two very like sturdy wrestlers, kind of similar to Topuria defensively and in their complexion, right? So
Mm.
that would be something very interesting to see. And also, obviously, that Makhachev is a southpaw. So sadly, that's probably not the next fight that we're going to see, even though it's
No,
like the best fight in the sport that you can make.
it's the most compelling. It was before this, but this made it more compelling, frankly. Yeah, I mean, Topuria is on a ridiculous streak. Like, no matter how much you can say about, I think Volk, Max, and Oliveira looking a little past their best here, still showed up for all these fights, and he met them tactic for tactic and beat them. I
Yeah,
think that's
I think Oliveira showed up fine here. I
mhm.
cannot blame him for not being able to like take the hit because it was a very clean punch, and
Yep.
the it was a fight where both guys were like willing to, not like they were willing to get finished, but they were like, okay, this is my best shot and I'm going to take it, and like it just went Topuria's way. I'm not saying that it was like a lucky finish. I feel
I
like
feel like this is a fight where even though like Topuria got the better of it, it's still a fight where it's very margins of difference with how dangerous both guys are.
exactly. Let me get back to the chat a little bit. Matua says you're eloquent. Subscribe and like. Hey, I appreciate that a lot. James Kendrick says how would Topuria be if he had a potent Matt Brown clinch game? Would he no longer be Topuria? I mean, that's a lot of depth to add to a fighter. Like obviously it would be fantastic, but yeah, I mean you have just limited time. Obviously Topuria has dedicated a lot of his time in other areas. Not that he's a bad clinch fighter, but he has specialized otherwise. If he had like that kind of clinch game, he would be like. I mean, he already is one of the best ever, despite like being so young in his career. So having that on top would be like kind of crazy. Who has scared Ilya with the takedown? Nobody so far. To be quite honest, like we saw Bryce Mitchell like taking him down, and he didn't give a shit on the second round.
Yeah, the thing about Topuria is like you have to be able to outposition him or back him off with an equalizer, and not really anyone's been able to do that pretty
That's
consistently.
yeah, that's the one thing is that Topuria is a very good like pure wrestler, but on top of that, his footwork allows him to always be in good position to defend takedowns. So I think like if you're going to take Topuria down, it's probably going to be in a more like chain wrestling kind of way, or maybe some clinch positioning. That's what makes the Makhachev fight
Yeah,
so
it's
interesting.
yeah, exactly. Like I think I still maintain the way to get to Topuria with like grappling things is intercepting him with clinches, and Oliveira did that here. So maybe somebody who targets like the body lock or goes for the diving intercepting takedowns can get more success there. Maybe turning the pipe on that one, so to speak.
Yeah,
But
well,
yeah, but
the Bryce Mitchell takedown was a reactive one, and was a very good read.
yeah.
So
The other thing is like you can still like draw his head movement with throwaways up close and then shoot for a takedown. That I think is going to be pretty key.
if someone, yeah, if someone would be able to, I think that one viable tactic would be. We have mentioned how Topuria loads his weight back when he's defending kicks because he likes to load for the counter there. That would be a good place to go for a takedown. So if you could use like kicks to stand Topuria up and load his weight back, then you might be able to shoot under that.
You're gonna laugh at this, but I think like some of Johnny Hendricks's flurries into leg kick tactics would be a good idea. Well, the leg kick flurry tactics he used against Lawler's defense would do
yeah,
well
for the
too.
lower one, right? Yeah,
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the kind of mix-ups you need to get to Topuria's footworks. It does not mean it's going to be easier said than done, because you got to watch out for those backstep counters he loves. But you, in order to beat him, you either need to figure out how to have answers for his positioning.
Another style that I think would be interesting for Topuria would be someone, but this is a very particular style that almost nobody has. But it would be like GSP when he was committing to out fighting, because he could like jab with him, use the inside leg kick to neutralize the lead leg, and then like frustrate him into like big right hands so he could go for the reactive takedown.
Mm-hmm.
And the closest to that we have seen was like when both were like kind of green. But Yusuf Salal showed a lot of on that third round. He showed that out movement mixed with the kicks, mixed with the takedowns could maybe work against Topuria. Obviously, Topuria has improved a lot, but he has been like building onto that same style. So he has been like on somewhat of a linear path in that sense, right?
Yeah, I still like there are still like definite like holes to get to Topuria for sure. Like, but it's easier said than done. That's just how it is with this kind of sport. Or like, there's no way with how like diverse everyone is that you're never gonna not have weaknesses or things to exploit. But it comes down to being able to navigate those margins and having answers, so on and so forth.
So what is next for Topuria? That's the big question, because like Dana White said he doesn't want Sarukian, even though Sarukian was the backup fighter for this fight. He doesn't want Paddy either. And like, we know that Paddy doesn't deserve it, but it's like, it is a huge fight, right?
Yeah.
Like, we cannot complain about like big fights. They might be annoying, but they're good for the sport, and it would be a huge fight. And to be quite honest, like Paddy is also like a somewhat interesting style matchup, because he's like super big. He's a kicker. He might not be like a dangerous kicker like Oliveira, but he's a lot more committed to being like passive and safe in open space. Even though he's not as good defensively, just the thing that Paddy doesn't want to put himself in danger can make for an interesting fight against a shorter boxer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Paddy, first and foremost, is better than I ever thought he would be a few years ago.
When he got to the UFC, he was not this good. One of those cases of guys that was like pretty deep into his career and got to the UFC and still improved.
I distinctly remember like thinking to myself, like, wait, what is his process here? How did it's like question mark? Oh, we're on the ground. And now there's like a clear process to like getting.
Yeah, you know that Paddy's now better because it's a lot easier to break him down now.
Yeah, and like actually has counters and ways to get people to the floor, where he is proven to be pretty dangerous, more or less, admittedly. Yeah, I think like that kind of like thing can be dangerous. It's just a serious question of, okay, is Topuria going to recognize when those counters are coming out, see how diverse they are, and draw them out, and then punish him for it? That's who knows. But yeah, Paddy being like decently tough as nails, apparently, it makes it interesting. But Topuria proved he can navigate like 5 rounds against lethal opponents before. So
yeah, I mean, Topuria obviously can knock out anyone. Like,
obviously at this point,
you give him like, you give Topuria a free shot on any of the heavyweights on the roster, and I think he puts them all down. Like, but Paddy like has an insane shin, because
apparently
he made in that fight that we all thought he lost against Jared Gordon, like he made Gordon look like he's pillow fisted, and like Gordon is not a huge puncher, but he has very good pop in his hands, and he was like eating those for breakfast in that fight, man. Like
Um,
that is tough, especially considering that he holds his chin so high, man.
yeah. Yeah, the other thing is like Topuria will obviously have to punch up against him.
Yeah, that
But
can rob you of some power sometimes.
yeah, but who knows? Patty's footwork hasn't particularly impressed me, so
Yeah, the footwork is the most concerning part.
yeah. So I'm not really inclined to pick Patty, but I do think he can offer a few interesting looks. I can say I think many of the top lightweights can. Would I pick many of them? Probably not. But I think everyone, like the chain wrestling of Sarukian and then Gamrot, if they can get there, the keyword being if, can get there, I think offers some things. But lightweight's also in a weird place because there's so much like veterans who are aging out at this point. It's just been in a weird transitional phase, it seems, for a while now. So
yeah,
who
and
knows?
with the whole thing of being champion in the weight below, like Topuria got to like not fight anyone young in lightweight, getting to the top, which is interesting. Um, so yeah, the rumors apparently about Paddy versus Gagey aren't true. Uh, which I kind of like that fight, to be honest.
Yeah, why not?
But yeah, we don't know about Topuria, so why don't we go to quickly to the rest of the card, and then we can answer some questions. Or co-main event, so Alexandre Pantoja defending his flyweight title against Kai Kara France. So these guys fought 9 years ago in the Ultimate Fighter, and Pantoja just kind of ran over Kai Kara France in this one, which I was expecting him to win, but it was still like a surprisingly dominant performance. Do you have any
Yeah,
thoughts on this?
going into it, I was kind of like, okay, Kai Kara France really likes the lead hand as a setup for the rear hand. The one caveat with that is that he's very he really needs guys to like respect kind of his blitzes a lot. And he either comes low or comes over. On the back foot, he doesn't really offer a lot beyond like trying to counter with the overhand. And so I immediately thought to myself, Pantoja is one of the most unique fast starters because he immediately looks for his win games immediately. So I was like, Pantoja's gonna basically look from the get go. Can Kai Kara France counter him, and can he prevent the back take? Turns out he couldn't prevent either of them. And he attempted to counter jab on the feet, but it didn't really do a whole lot because Pantoja was just like, I see what you're trying to do. I see you're trying to post out with that lead hand, so I can just jab with you and win because I'm the one still pressing forward. And then from there, like Kai Kara France kept having to reset, and Pantoja just kept attacking him there every time until he kept taking his back and then just basically steamrolled him.
Yeah. What I gotta say about this performance is that it's like second performance in a row where ATT. I don't know who's the game planner for Pantoja. And I don't know if it's Pahupa, but they were like very on point, just like against Kaya Sakura. They were like not adding. That's the interesting thing is that there are tools that Pantoja clearly have, but it's clear that they came with those in mind. For example, for against Sky, they were planning on punishing retreats with kicks, and in this one, it was like just like attacking with kicks a lot, putting Kai Kara France on the back foot, uh, forcing him against the cage, and when he swings, just into transition into the takedowns. And it was just relentless. It was like so aggressive. You gotta be so confident to open a title fight like that, especially against
Yeah.
especially because Pantoja has been doing it. Like some people say, oh, it's just flyweights, but it's like Kai Kara France and Kaya Sakura, they knock people out if you're careless. And to be quite honest, like that first sequence of Pantoja can look kind of janky here with his mechanics, but he was like positionally pretty sound in that opening sequence against Kai Kara France. He was like following him with his footwork pretty well. He nailed him with the right hand. The moment that Kai tried to open up with a counter, he got hit with a straight right and got into the takedown immediately. So it was a sharp sequence, especially because it was the first exchange of the fight.
Yeah, I always love how Pantoja is so ruthless at like chaining his strikes together or like flurries together for back take attacks. Like he's such a demon at looking for that. That
Yeah.
guys just always, they should know it's coming, but they never do, just because he's just uniquely like tactically good at like reading what they do. Like a great sequence of this fight is like in the second round where Kai Kara France is on the feet trying to get stuff done. And is he tries like coming behind like the body jab over dipping low. Oh, so Pantoja is just like, what if I just try going for a collar tie, or what if I just go for like flurries every time you step in? And it just shuts it down. So Kai Kara France is like striking really relies upon that setup tool, and with that, Pantoja kind of just shuts it down pretty quickly. Like he's very, very savvy at like reading that kind of thing.
Yeah. Also, like, also another thing that he's good at reading, but also I feel like the preparation was good here because, like, you know that Kai Kara France gets like very low to throw his punches, and Pantoja was aiming low with that counter right hand all night. He was throwing like starting here on the shoulders, and he was going down with it. He was trying to put him like, you're not going to get low and get your counters for free here, little man.
Yeah, it's
I'm going
hard.
to hit you
Yeah,
with those.
a chopping right's a great choice against a guy who's like dipping to try to blitz
Yep.
in, because it's a lot harder for them to like backstep off of it. That's why the reason someone like Topuria can predict that is because he's constantly like distributing his weight evenly instead of like being so front foot forward when he's stepping in half the time. But yeah, the chopping right was a great idea to punish things like the body jab and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
But
and also like he was using the chopping right in an interesting way too, because he was staying tight with his right hand, so that was like kind of countering. He was like closing the door from the other side, kind of, because he was like staying here and he was staying tight. So and Kai countered so wide that he was just like staying inside his punches, and he was not getting hit with kind of anything. Uh, in fact, Hagar has not a lot of clean connections with the right hand here at all.
nope.
Pantoja was like getting lower with him, putting the high guard, and it was like hitting the hard parts of his head. He was not absorbing damage with those. And then the back takes the pace. It was like great performance, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good showing of like using your main like strengths and kind of just breaking his weaknesses down, allocating to those accordingly. So yeah, typical good showing from Pantoja, who's basically a veteran at this point.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that it looked like at one moment that Pantoja was like really getting kind of old, like just like when he was getting becoming a champion. And I think he has looked quite better now than against. And it's just not the opposition. I feel like he has looked sharper technically in his last few performances.
Yeah.
It probably has to do that now he's a full-time fighter because
Yeah.
he was being like an overdriver like just 5 years ago. So
Yeah, I mean, Pantoja has always been a guy who fights like psychotically well tired, but like his gas tank has never been amazing, so to speak. So he's forced to like navigate it by just being very savvy and attentive to what's going on. But yeah, I think it was just another good like clean showing of why he's just able to read things a lot better than most of his opposition.
yeah, for sure. And then after the fight, Pantoja faced off with a fighter involved in the previous fight, which was, I guess we all agree, the best fight of the night. So why don't we talk about Joshua Bam versus Brandon Royval? What are your first impressions about this one?
Fight of the year so far.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I honestly, chaotic would be the best word to describe it. Because the whole thing was, it takes place completely on the whole center line. So both guys facing each other. So there wasn't really attacking at like angles or anything. It was just both guys just kind of testing like the sheer limits of their offense against each other in a kind of an arms race. And so I have to give Brandon Royval some serious flowers here to start, because I think one thing I've had a serious criticism of him as far as his striking skills go is that it's very inconsistent, and a lot of his main tools, he's not good at pairing them together. But color me surprised, his jab looked the best it had ever been in this fight.
Especially not only tactically but also mechanically. Like you can tell that I've never seen Brandon Royval's jab look this heavy. Like this was like a jab that you gotta respect.
Yeah, it would, because he kind of had the habit of just throwing it out, like flicking it out, like for the sake of volume, but it wasn't like effective, like where you're doing like a tap, tap, tap kind of like throwaway rhythm kind of thing that guys use, like Holloway would. No, it would just kind of be a kind of spazzing out of control a lot.
It was mostly a setup, a fake setup for the left hand for the most part.
Yeah, but here, like he used it for so many different things. Like the very first thing he did, paired it off of his kicks. And then, like, in round 2, when Van was starting to get to him, he, like, started using it to, like, start exchanges as a counter jab and end it as a counter jab to, like, close the door on it. Because a lot of people discount the use of, like, a counter jab to, like, close off range. And it's something he used pretty consistently. Yeah. I think, like, that was the MVP for Royval in this fight, like, the main counter jab.
Yeah, the counter jab, and another thing that was, like, and that was reliant on his insane shin, too. But he was, like, very good at just, like, when he was getting hit hard by Van, he was, like, I feel like what he was doing was, like, tracking where the lead foot of Van was on the exit. And if he was outside, he was like, okay, I'm turning this way and I'm throwing the straight left. If he's going inside, I'm just throwing the left side here. But you can tell that every time that Van was hitting him hard, Van was getting caught on the retreat by that long left hand. Yeah, he was very committed to it.
Yeah, because like the thing about Van was, so Van's strategy here, or I'm doing in like kind of sequences how some things played out a bit. So Van's idea to start with was, okay, I know conventional open stance terminology. We're going to have a southpaw against an orthodox guy. You're going to want outside foot position. What if I give it to you so I can just jab you in the face easier?
A classic for the southpaws, yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people assume you have to get that outside foot position to win this battle. No, you don't. If you have a better jab at like close range or a good left hook.
Lead hook, yeah.
Yeah, and Van clearly had both going for him throughout this whole fight. You can concede to that. Now, does it mean you're going to run into a lot of rear hand counters, which is exactly what happened in this fight? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So at first, Van kind of starts winning it just because of that tactic. But then Royval kind of keys into, wait a second, you keep coming straight in. I can just counter jab and just fire straight down the middle, and I can usually tag you. And then we make the exchanges a lot more messier where you kind of panic a bit, so I can just keep on the momentum over and over again. The problem was Royval got too aggressive, and then he would get countered. So it just led to this constant seesaw of chaos between them.
Yeah, I think that one thing that costed Royval here is that he was not able to pressure behind his kicks. So when they were in neutral space, he was effective with the kicking. But when he felt like he had to move forward, he was putting himself into boxing range against Van, who is the sharper puncher there.
Yeah. One really neat little tactic Van used is Ghost, you just brought up the topic of like as far as like rear hand throwing from Royval. I want to bring up Van's rear hand too, because it kind of has a very weird like overextension himself. Now, part of it here might be because he had to punch up at Royval a lot, but Van kind of has this thing where he steps in, but he'll overstep and then like step back because he did that. So he'll have to like replant his stance, and then he'll just end up like getting countered as a result. So that's why that rear hand of Royval was landing so damn much in this fight. But one little cool thing Van does is he's really good at like angling his punches a bit. So to counter Royval's like rear hand, he kind of threw his rear hand with Royval, where he just threw like kind of a short chopping right hook, and this cut off so many of like Royval's like follow up attacks. But yeah, Van had some very, very clever ideas as far as like his punch selection here. The left, one of the key things that won Van the fight by the very end was realizing I can backstep into the left hook and he's going to run into that consistently.
Yeah, and he was doing that from both foot positionings. So he wasn't caring about, he was just adjusting the arc of the punch. But either if Brandon was stepping in on the outside or on the inside, Van was looking for the left hook. A few beautiful like check hooks here and there that were gaining Van key a few seconds here and there. Also, gotta say, insane that Royval took all that body punching without going down once, because he was taking some nasty ones.
Dude, okay, so there's a clip I took of it, but like Van Lin has like these two little short like shovel hooks to like the solar plexus gut and into the liver right after each other. And I'm just like, dude.
Royval also landed like in some nasty knees to the body, right?
Yeah, Royval had a great idea with like clinching, like intercepting and punching into clinches. Except Van did what like some very certain boxers do. So some boxers like they're like, well, I'm kind of not a great infighter. What if I just flurry really fucking hard or to make you not want to be here? And usually it works a lot. And so Van's idea was, I'm just gonna punch a fucking hole through your body.
Which reminded me a bit about Topuria against Volkanovski, the way that he was just immediately reacting with body punches the moment that he got colored ties grabbed on him.
But yeah, I mean, this fight was incredibly chaotic. I don't really think any other two other flyweights could have had one like that.
It was insane. I'm surprised by so many things. Obviously, the durability of Royval, like up there. But also the fact that Joshua Van did not melt after that second round.
Yeah.
Because it was like, it's crazy, because the first round, I was surprised that Van made, I feel like, a conscious effort of not having his usual slow start in this one.
Yeah.
So he went like, I'm going to make my reads quick and I'm going to counter immediately. And he won that first round, very clear, in my opinion. But then Royval, on that second round, insane. And the fact that Royval was not able to snowball from that position, it's so impressive from Joshua Van's part.
Yeah, it's I think both guys really played into each other's like styles really well. That like both flatters and like affects them. Because I was kind of astonished Van didn't go to the hospital with him, and for obvious reasons. But one cool thing of note, and just because it's a side comment of my exact stream of conscious as I was watching this, it was like I was watching in the moment like Royval landed those sequence of like 1-2s that finally get Van's attention. That second, I was like, oh god damn it, Josh Van really is flyweight Shane Burgos.
Yeah, I remember you saying that on the live stream. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the best comparison, but he basically has many of the same issues with like offense is the best defense sometimes, but like Van is very, very gifted with like punch selection, like making good tactical striking reads to facilitate offense. It's just the problem is he's so zeroed in on like that center line attack and control that he can run into like getting countered pretty consistently, or like running into like guys who are good at like punishing his resets, which makes a Pantoja matchup kind of interesting because Pantoja isn't gonna like fight on the center line. He's good at like being tough enough to take it to like put it somewhere else.
Yeah, that's what makes it. Let's talk a little bit about Pantoja versus Van, because obviously that's the next fight.
Before I say anything on it, I do think personally it would be a good idea. I do think, for what it's worth, we do have to remember Van is being pushed really fast here. So if they do this, by all means, but they're setting up a career that's going to burn out really quickly.
Yeah, it has me very concerned, to be quite honest. But
yeah,
if you're gonna like burn quick, like at least you get to be world champion.
Yeah, and
while
also
it lasts, right?
you're good enough to beat like a top 5 flyweight. It's still a guy who showed up on Fire, one of the best performances he's shown, and beat that, and still like show you're still obviously very talented, still getting better. So who knows at the very least? I do think it would be good if Van got like a 5-round experience before this
Yeah,
fight, but I do think Pantoja offers some very interesting tests, and I don't think
but
it's not
if there was
unwinnable.
a but if there ever was a fight that showed that you had 5 round cardio in just 3 rounds, it was this one, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I think both guys' matchups kind of demonstrated that like I don't really think anyone's going to be able to stand in the fire like that with Van ever again. Like even Pantoja or Moreno, I don't think could have done that
No, because
necessarily.
Pantoja and Moreno, like they're not scared of exchanging, but they like their changes of paces. They like the transition work. That's
Yeah,
what makes it interesting, right? Because like Van has been very good at defending takedowns, but he has not faced a transitional
exactly. Yeah,
threat that
that's
Pantoja or
that's
even a
the big
Moreno
thing.
is.
Yeah, and I mean, I mean, for all intents and purposes, we now know like cumulative efforts like Van can hurt basically anyone in the division. He just
Yeah.
has to keep punching them over and over again. But Pantoja and Moreno like make that a bit harder than Royval will, I
Yeah,
imagine.
and also another thing that's interesting is that on the topic of boxers in MMA, because we were talking about Topuria so much, Van, there are some things about kick defense. Like in his previous fight against Bruno Silva, uh, Bruno Silva was not like being super successful, but he was winning himself so much time via kicking at range. And Pantoja is like is a more clever kicker, but also a harder kicker than Bruno Silva. I feel Pantoja kicks so hard, and that's something that commands respect. He opened up against that fight against Kai Kara France with a brutal switch kick to the body, and he was like setting the tone, like you're not going to just sit down and punch in this fight against me. I'm going to be kicking you. I'm going to be punching into takedowns, and that's what makes it interesting, right? Because like obviously, like if you're going to exchange in the pocket, like I don't think anyone has a very good shot at beating Ban in the flyweight division right now. But if there's someone that can mix everything right now, is Pantoja. So it's a very interesting fight. Hopefully, if Ban doesn't get it, he can bounce back and doesn't like burn out, as you said, because like he's fighting so much, and this
And
is
a lot
like
of his fights have been brutal back and forth, and
yeah,
he's been
a
hurt
lot of
in
fights have
many of
been
them.
brutal. Like not only like um if we go back, he has had so many hard fights. Like people forget, people. I think we all think about Ban like being super dominant, but he has been in rough fights.
Oh
Like
yeah,
the Borjas one,
the
what
Charas one.
the Shiros one, the Shiros and the Borjas one, like flying under the radar because he took a lot of damage on both.
Yeah,
And
and
then
then like the Johnson one,
the
which
Shiros
he
Johnson
got
one, he
knocked
got
out.
knocked out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean this one for obvious reasons, but like, yeah, I mean his is the kind of career like he's prestigiously talented. Obviously, he as far as shot selection, tactics, and like doing a lot of the right things that a lot of guys aren't used to punishing. But I mean, in the process, he hasn't really refined like some disciplined like defensive structures or systems yet to really like maximize things. Like offensively, terrifying. But like defensively, really needs to rely upon his offense, and that's like going to be
Yeah,
a big
Van
question.
is like just like Burgos. Yeah, I feel like
Exactly.
Van is like that middle point between like Burgos and like Peter Yan, but it's like when he has the initiative, he looks so sharp defensively. But then you steal the initiative for a few seconds, and he looks kind of lost sometimes. And
Yeah.
Ghost is on the comments like pointing out something that he does, and that's true. Is that well, when he's moving forward, he sometimes like steps first with his rear foot and he squares his stance. And when he does that, like the options becomes a lot more limited.
Yeah, Ghost, that really manifested whenever he threw the rear hand sometimes in this fight. Like
Yeah, he was
the amount
dragging
of
his rear
because the
foot.
amount of counter lefts he took from doing that.
Yeah.
until he kind of changed the trajectory on some of the punches, which forced him to kind of make his head come down in the process. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
would be interesting against someone with a good collar tie in Pantoja, right?
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, great read.
So, but yeah, very good fight. We'll be talking about it more when the time comes, when they announce the fight. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that we're both very excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, we had a fight between Benil Dariush and Renato Moni Moicano, and it was a weird fight.
Yeah, never before has there been a fight made where I'm like, okay, who is more likely to have the weirder post-fight interview? Guy who screams about his newest conspiracy book on nothing, or guy who makes weird casual remark that you assume is satire, but no, it's not. Who knows? Anyways, the fight matchup was actually interesting because it's between two old veterans who are like decently like skilled and versatile, but like very like specific in their ways.
And this is a pattern for old Moicano now, that is like, he's a pretty good striker, but when he turns into a grappler, like the striking goes flying out of the window and he just like grapples. It's so weird. And you don't want to be a one note grappler against Benil Dariush.
No, even like an ancient Benil Dariush is still a very good grappler. Yeah, so this whole fight, like immediately, I was like, okay, so Dariush is basically trying to do a really basic thing, just trying to draw him into kicks and counters. And my immediate thought was, why the hell isn't Moicano like trying to get that like outside foot position? And because it's clear he doesn't know how to handle a hand fight at all. And then eventually, and then he also has Dariush's back to the fence. So I'm just thinking to myself, okay, I have no idea what he's doing. And then he finally gets Dariush to reset and hits him with the right counter. I'm like, oh,
yep,
fun. The game of chickens finally
and
over.
it was weird too, because like Moicano has historically been a very effective switch hitter. So, and we've seen him like him being the southpaw and using like effective positioning in the past. That wasn't the case in this one.
Yeah.
It was. I feel like Moicano is a bit regressed when it comes as a striker. I feel he has been putting his eggs in the grappling basket lately.
Yeah, he's always been really weird about like selecting phases of the fight. It's kind of like oh, we're grappling now. I guess that's the mode of the fight we're doing. Oh, we're striking now. I guess that's the mode, but no like transitional kind of stuff. Which is where
he used to be pretty decent as a transitional fighter, which.
Mm-hmm.
So yes. Yeah, I feel like Dariush is someone that with age has been losing a bit of dynamism, but his craftiness still expresses when it comes to making the right decisions inside a fight. While Moicano is one of those fighters that with age they become more limited, not only technically but also tactically. So I feel like it was like just adequate that in a fight between old veterans, like the one that is like maintaining his wit is winning this one.
Yeah. Let me, however, eloquently tell you all some very niche MMA Reddit lore before we proceed to talk about how Dariush won this fight. So once upon a time, you may recall a 2-fight rivalry between two men named Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. And once upon a time, there was a Reddit post who had a theory finally explaining how Nate Diaz defeated Conor McGregor in their first meeting. And you see, and Feño already knows what I'm doing. That's awesome. You see, Nate Diaz did this thing this Redditor wrote called out-thugging Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
And the funniest part about that is he obviously meant it a very different way than what it meant, but the funny part is it kind of was right.
It was weirdly right. Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is Dariush out-thugged Moicano.
Yeah, for sure. He out-thugged him because he got dropped and then he came back and showed him who's the real thug.
Because the moment round 2 starts, Dariush is like, game of chickens over. All right,
I'm coming for your ass now.
Yeah, and so he immediately is like, here's the lead hook to kill your footwork up, level change. Now we're Now we're grappling. And the thing is, it's really smart to do that because Moicano, like, he hates he hates trying to move laterally unless he has like an active jab or his kicking game going. And Dariush
Yeah,
just gave him none of that. And like Dariush just kept getting that outside foot position over and over again. So he'd step in on it and then use that drive on going on his front foot to go for those takedowns. And he just kept attaining and keeping those positions like with tactics over and over and over again. And then
yep.
Moicano couldn't like get the lead on anything. So yeah, he out-thugged him.
He outthought him. That's the right call. Yeah, it was a decent scrap. It's very telling that this was like the worst fight of the main card, and it was still pretty good.
Yeah.
So talking about the main card, the opener was a fight between prospects between Peyton Talbot and Felipe Lima. I quite enjoyed this one. It was fun.
I wasn't super familiar with both guys. I saw Talbot's, I think, his last two prior, but my recollection of him was a little off. Lima I had actually never seen before, but I was told this was going to be good and it was fun.
Yeah, it was pretty decent. I think Lima. I think he's a transition fighter to a fault, and he was like kind of forcing the transition sometimes. I think he was expecting Talbot to be way easier to wrestle, and it was like that classic MMA brain moment that it's like you're seeing that the transitions are not working and you're still like pushing for them all the time. So it was like Talbot kept winning a lot of these like forced grappling exchanges. On the feet it was interesting because like Talbot a lot more comfortable on the feet, but Lima was swinging hard back. A bit of it maybe he was a bit scared, but he was doing good job a lot of the time. Like
Yeah,
Talbot was looking a bit foot slow on the front foot, but
my read of it is so Talbot, I mean, this obviously backfired against him before. Talbot's whole deal is he like stands pretty tall because he's trying to like set up like poles through his upper body to like
yep.
probe with like the jab to set you up, and he's very accurate and potent with it. It's just the problem is also like as soon as you exploit that pole, you can like build off of it. The problem was Lima just kept going backwards and would try to blitz in on a guy who's standing tall, so he has to punch up
Yeah.
constantly. And so it didn't really work too much, and it made him look pretty reckless. It's in kind of a mess.
And the other thing with Talbot is that he stands like pretty squared in front of you because you can tell that he wants to have like everything available to him to hit you. So he's not like super concerned with blading himself to hide behind the lead shoulder. He's just like floating hands and like kind of square with both shoulders looking at you. So he can like punch you hard with both hands.
Yeah, I think Talbot has a great idea though, like kind of using like posting with the jab like out as a frame. Well, he
and leaving it out
hit.
there. Yeah,
and that basically killed Lima's counters or attempts to like get things done with it, unless Talbot just kept throwing at him. But yeah, I think like just Talbot just knowing how to strike a bit better on the feet is what won it for him. On the ground, just Talbot sort of screwed himself in scrambles a bit to make it a bit messy because he kept fighting grips and turning into stuff. But more or less, like he just had the better process on the feet pretty consistently.
Yeah, it was that. It's not that Talbot like super leveled on the grappling from the last one. I mean, obviously he has been working hard and he has been improving, but it was a lot more of like making sure that the initiative that he had on the feet was not putting him in bad positions to being wrestled. And Lima was just like trying to push the wrestling anyway, and he was being punished for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a fun fight between like very young fighters, so it was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool. Before that, we have Gregory Rodriguez against Jack Hermanson. Very weird fight because like Rodriguez was not landing one good right hand on Hermanson. Hermanson was hiding behind his lead shoulder all the time. But as any boxing coach would tell you, if you keep hiding behind your lead shoulder, the left hook is going to come back after it. And that was exactly what happened. Rodriguez blitzed in with a fake right hand, stepped in with the left hook, and just killed Hermanson with one punch.
Yeah, I think RoboCop just had better ideas overall, even leading up to that. Because his whole thing was like he waited until Hermanson kept moving back and like flurry to press him.
Yep.
and just kept jabbing with him. Because the thing about Hermanson is, and this drives me crazy as somebody who has watched way too much boxing from the 1950s. I don't know if you noticed this, Feño, but how Hermanson tries to throw the check hook off the pivot, it is really awkward because he keeps bouncing on his feet as he does it. So instead of like turning with it to like land, he just throws himself off balance every single time and does like this weird cruddy
He
dance.
still takes himself off the center line, but it's janky.
Yeah. And so like basically like Rodriguez just had the better ideas. It's like flurry when you press, jab, ab to like keep pressing you, and then right to cut off your retreat with the left hook, and then I murder you. And Herb Dean proceeds to once again get lucky that somebody didn't die again.
Those follow-up shots were horrible, man.
Yeah, I'm still shocked. Like it's never. I hate to be that guy. I'm still shocked at like something really bad hasn't happened in the UFC yet.
MMA has been lucky, man.
It's been lucky, but like, yeah, that just shouldn't happen, man. And I'm sorry, it just shouldn't. But I mean, disgusting knockout before that, though. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, let's like quickly run down the rest because like nothing super important happened. Jose Delgado and Haider Emil both are like super action fighters. I was expecting an all-out war, but Jose Delgado just landed a huge knee to the face of
It looked
Emil.
like a war to start with, and then he ruined it.
I mean, yeah, it was a war for whatever it lasted, but then Emil just died. That was a brutal knockout, by the way. Like,
yeah.
Tracy Cortez just superior to Viviane Araújo on the feet, on the wrestling. Like, not a lot to say, but she's putting together a well put together game, and I appreciate that. Terrence McKinney again, he's either killing a guy on the first round or getting killed on the second round himself.
And Borshev's old, so
Borshev was so fun for a little bit, and now he's like washed to bits.
I'm convinced it's that Sadikov fight a few years ago. Oh,
that was so good though.
That fight was so insane. But like, yeah. Oh, he used to be so cool.
Sadikov is so insanely durable, man. It's not fair.
It's not fair.
Jacoby Smith was like kind of getting tired after failing to finish Immortal Nico Price, but he was able to get the submission on the second round, so that's good for him as a prospect in the 170 division. Nico Price is not as dynamic anymore, but he's still like very, very tough. So, and he's a good grappler too. So I kind of give points to Jacoby Smith for that one.
Yeah, I will say one interesting thing to watch for Smith's development is like how he weaponizes like the step and jab. It's almost a gazelle jab in how he does it.
Yep, and he likes to like post it and set up stuff with the rear side, and he can like he can play with the expectations because sometimes he goes like overhand, uppercut, or the knee. He likes the rear knee a lot.
Yeah, he loves feinting that uppercut, like folding with the hip for it too. But yeah, just obviously like not the best look optically, getting tired and kind of like getting landed on in the clinch encounters that went on, but like he's still obviously a talented prospect.
It still looked like a fight that if it was like prime Nico Price, he'll lose, right?
I'd say yeah.
Because he was getting tired, and like the thing with old Nico Price is that he kind of also gets a bit tired, and that was never a thing with prime Nico Price. So, but that's why they made him now this fight, because he's old. And the opponent was Jonathan Diniz, a former pro kickboxer, against Alvin Hines, who looks like a jacked dad. And Diniz failed to get the knockout.
Wait, stop. So you're telling me Diniz is the former kickboxer?
Yeah.
The fuck? Okay, yeah, because this fight confused the fuck out of me when I watched it. Oh, man, I don't even know where to start. So I tune in for the broadcast, and the first thing I see is Alvin Hines setting up lead straights to the body, and I'm like, wait, what division is this? And then I saw him like feinting double jabs and shit, and I immediately got even more confused. And then I watched the fight back, and that didn't help. Oh, because
that's funny because like Hines was trying like the smarter stuff, and he was still getting the shit beat out of him.
Yeah, I mean the fight was definitely way closer than it looked just because of that. But then like Denise's great ideas was just like, I'm just gonna throw a right hook into like like just a step in, like shifting, like jab, and that just kept working every time because Hines just had really shitty hop steps stepping back.
Yeah.
And but meanwhile, then like Hines would just land the right straight to the gut, and it was murdering Denise in the third
Yeah.
round. But yeah, just an excessively really funny fight of just like weird tactics and weird dynamics, along with the most excessive wooing I have ever heard in a while. Oh, in like the second round. But yeah, bizarrely really fun heavyweight fight though.
It was, yeah. But these guys are like, this is a lot better than your average heavyweight fight, to be honest. So,
Yeah.
so that's the event. It was pretty good. It was, I mean, watching Topuria is a delight. So
Yeah. I don't remember a card I've enjoyed like that in a while though. So
yeah, it was. Yeah, you're right. It has the best we've had in a while, man.
yeah. I mean I haven't paid too much attention to full cards, but yeah. I don't want to say it was 300. I feel like there was another one in between, but that was pretty good.
Anyway, so we'll be answering some questions. If anyone is there and want to ask anything, it can be related to the fighters in the card or something about the future. We'll be here for a bit if you guys want to answer anything. In the meantime, let's talk about obviously the fight that Dan has been looking forward the most, and that's Derek Lewis against Talison Teixeira, obviously.
Oh yeah. Derek versus who?
He's fighting a guy that is very tall and he's called Talison Teixeira.
Oh Jesus! Hang on, let me look at this.
And this is the main event of the next card.
Oh,
This is not this week, by the way. It's the next week.
We give Derek Lewis main events for the memes, bro. That's always how it goes.
2025, and we still getting the meme Derek Lewis main event, man.
Yeah. Oh Jesus! Nate Landwehr versus Morgan. How do
that one is so good, man.
That fight's
one is
gonna
so
be
good.
crazy. I always mess with that name, but that fight's gonna be fucking nuts.
That should be a main event, to be honest, because
that should be the main event. Yeah, dude, give Landwehr a main event.
I don't get this is. Oh, at least this has a crowd, man. Because like, if there's like a popular opinion that I actually agree with, is that you should not put like Nate Landwehr in the apex, man. That's a crime, man. Put this guy in front of people, please.
No, dude. Half the reason the Onama fight ruled was because of that.
Oh, it was so good, man.
That fight is a mess and a half, but it.
James Kendricks asked Wellmaker versus Talbot. Have you seen Wellmaker?
I have not seen Wellmaker.
Oh, Wellmaker is fun, man.
He better be, because that last name is terrible.
Oh, he makes well, man. He makes well.
Oh, dad jokes, yeah.
Oh, but yeah, Wellmaker is very dynamic. Has a killer right hook, and he has been dynamite in the UFC so far. So
yeah, I'll have to check him out.
You have to check him out. He's one of the most interesting in conjunction with like Lima and Talbot right now. James Kendrick says, I know it's not going to happen, but Prime Dustin Poirier versus Topuria. That's very interesting, I feel.
Yeah, I think Poirier actually checks a lot of the striking boxes for like someone against Topuria. Well, Poirier kind of has some weird like cage issues. I always say ring craft, sorry, bad habit. So I think one really interesting thing is I haven't really seen Topuria deal with a really good lead right hook from a southpaw. I'm not as convinced as many others that Topuria is going to struggle that much with like quote a southpaw striker that much. A southpaw kicker, though, I think is a different question. But like as far as like boxing wise, like I don't think it's going to be that much of a big deal outside of some caveats. Poirier would be the one exception though to test that, because I do think Topuria does rely upon that like lead shoulder to defend, and Poirier kind of excels with breaking through defenses with that like touching lead hand into the right hook and to little things like a left uppercut and left.
Yeah, that's one thing that gives like that Poirier is like a very, despite not being like a nuanced kicker, he's a very versatile striker just because his punch selection is so vast, and and that's something that he's one of the few guys that you could tell like he has a bigger number of actual useful punches than Topuria. So
Yeah.
he's very dangerous in that
Yes,
sense.
because like, well, Topuria can like hop step back. Poirier is the kind of guy who is going to be able to follow him, like, and be one of the few guys who can actually.
It's obviously also like dangerous for Dustin too, because like if he like makes the wrong read and like crosses his feet in front of Topuria, he can get killed too. But
Yeah,
it goes both ways.
yeah. I think like if there is a striker who can beat Topuria on the feet in like a pure like striking battle at lightweight, it's probably Dustin Poirier at his peak.
Yeah, for sure. But it's a very good matchup.
Yeah.
And also like because open matchup like Dustin like his body kick is not pretty, but it's hard. It is
Oh
a
yeah.
nasty kick, yeah. And we've seen that Topuria like he blocks those well, but those kind of suck to take over and over again. And and well, the shifting can be dangerous for Poirier, but it can also work, right?
Yeah, because like even against like a dangerous counterpuncher like McGregor, Poirier like showed a good idea of like shifting into like dipping out pretty
Yeah,
quickly to draw counters. So I think it can work against somebody with a dangerous like counterpunching game like Topuria. Because Topuria is not going to be able to trade in layers with Dustin that much unless he like hops out or re-angles the center line. And that's a bit tricky to do with Dustin.
yep. It's a very good fight. James Henricks asked, what about someone with like Lorenz Larkin skill set? That's very interesting too. Um, I feel like Larkin a bit limited inside the pocket in a way that Topuria probably likes, but on the outside, the kick variety, the foot speed, I think it's very interesting, and also the clinching. So that's a skill set that you don't see very often. Like someone
Mhm.
like a prime Lorenz Larkin, not a lot of fighters have that like versatility and options, which is something that's very interesting. I think that the one thing that plays against Larkin is that he doesn't have a lot of control tools. He has a very good jab, a lot of like poking kicks, but he doesn't use them in a way that like sets up the rest of his game. He's mostly like frustrating you and piling up damage so he can get to the big strikes.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I haven't watched Larkin in a minute, so it's not very fresh in my mind. So listen to that guy.
The stop kicks, that's something good, very interesting. That's something that we didn't talk about Van versus Royval, when he started like just going with the side kicks to the knee at the end of the third round, which was a very cool adjustment to the pressure of Royval.
Mhm. Yeah, and Max had good success versus Topuria
Topuria,
like that
yeah,
as
yeah,
well. Yeah,
those
I
were,
think it's a good idea. The problem is if you keep relying upon it, someone like Topuria is going to step out and back step out, and then try to attack you on the reset.
yeah,
So
the
you have to be
but
choosy a bit.
yeah, because Topuria has the ability to circle out. He has good footwork mechanics, so he can like kill that if you get predictable, and that's like the killer of the linear sidekick to the leg is the circular movement. We saw like ages ago Alexander Gustafsson take away the linear kicks from John Jones just by circling around the cage.
Yeah, and the other thing is like like Ryan Hall didn't do a stomp kick on Topuria, but he did like basically like do like some side kicks and forced to reset his feet kind of like that, and Topuria was just like, you're not threatening me with those at all, I can just step back. And it's kind of the same thing. So a layered guy who like ties them together like Holloway would be able to make that work, and you should, but you got to set it up with other stuff.
Do you consider Topuria the gold standard for cage cutting? I mean, he's up there, but he also hasn't faced like a very committed outside striker since like Salal back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to see him against someone that is very comfortable moving on the outside. Like Volkanovski likes to move around, but he likes to like use his movement to set up stuff like more in neutral space. He's not like a natural like out boxer that likes to like circle on the perimeters of the
Yeah,
cage, I
because
would say.
Volkanovski's amazing at managing like space as far as like strike selection and mix-ups, like better than anyone else in MMA. But like to be perfectly honest, footwork has never been like defensively has never been Volkanovski's like strength.
Especially like in broad strokes, because like Volkanovski can have like good positioning during an exchange, but when it comes to like cagecraft and that kind of stuff, like Volkanovski like lacks like the very tight pivots that allow you to be efficient with movement on the outside. He's a lot of like wide circling that he masks with a lot of like good feints, switching stances and good kicking that allow him to like not be punished very often for the big movements that he do on the outside.
Yeah. Now, does it mean it's easier said than done to like corner him? Obviously not. Topuria had to work for it. But I do think it's fair to say Topuria is definitely one of the best like cage cutters we've ever seen. I'd say him and Jan at Jan's best are probably like two of the ones that stick out. I'd say
Very good, yeah.
RDA, another one. Jan Sandhagen
RDA,
is,
yeah.
Yeah, Jan Sandhagen is still one of the other gold standards for like cutting off the cage against
I guess a good mover, by the way. Like
yes.
Sandhagen, very good at moving on the outside. Who are other like very good cage cutters? Robbie Lawler later into his career like dropped the pressure aspect a little bit, but he was like very good.
Yeah,
just like using his very good defense to just push forward and put you against the cage.
I think there are moments where Oliveira has shown to be a really good cage cutter, if memory serves me right. Like mainly against Poirier, but then he encountered resistance and some Oliveira-isms happened. But Gaethje at his prime was a really good cage cutter, in his aggressive days.
Actually, this is funny because like he lost that fight, but his fight against Alvarez, a lot of like brilliant cage cutting.
And Alvarez is really good at like handling pressure compared to most fighters.
Alvarez is so good at moving on the outside. Like the fact that he was able to win against both RDA and pressuring Gaethje like just speaks volumes.
Yeah, like if you want to see like a premier like example of how good Alvarez's like outside movement is, watch his rematch with Chandler. That is the standard that Sean O'Malley should have studied before he fought Merab.
Oh yeah, that's actually very good one.
Yeah, even though that fight gets really messy and bloody as it goes on because Chandler's a freak.
Is prime athletic Aldo with his all skill set be a good matchup for Topuria? Very interesting, actually.
Yeah, Aldo's one of the few featherweights I think I would give a really good chance of beating Topuria,
especially if he kicks the legs. And like Aldo has like Max Holloway has good awareness. He moves well. He doesn't have the technical footwork of a prime Aldo.
No, Max really relies upon his neutral strike selection in the same way Volkanovski does, just with like different allocations. And it's like Volk needs like the mix of feints and like the punches off kicks, kicks off punches, and vice versa. Max is just about the threat of the avalanche constantly.
And the jabbing battle between Topuria and Aldo would be so interesting.
Yeah, too. Aldo would be the biggest test for like Topuria's cage cutting and vice versa, actually. Yeah, I think Weidman's a great call, Ghost. Great.
Yeah, Weidman, especially that Weidman versus Machida is like a fight that you can watch and learn so much from.
Oh yeah,
from both guys.
It's a really I'm gonna go off on a tangent, but fuck it, that fight deserves it. Really, really funny dynamic of how they have a hand fighting battle that gets closer and closer in range as it goes on, and it just changes the trajectory of how it's fought, and it's really funny.
Yeah, it's such a good fight.
It's really good.
One of the best higher weight classes fights that we have seen in MMA.
Actually, yeah. Other interesting prospects like historically at featherweight, I think for Topuria would have been McGregor, Mendez, and Edgar, but those are different kind of questions entirely.
Yeah, they offer kind of different kind of challenges. Is Topuria really heavy-handed, or is it more that he's catching people super clean? I mean, the biggest punchers, they are always accurate for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like he hits very hard, and I always bring this example of a guy that obviously hits super hard, but it's not accurate with his punching. It's Aldo. although you can tell he hits like a motherfucker, but he's not catching people clean. Like he doesn't have the accuracy. If you go back and watch Aldo hitting people, he's always like catching them on the side of the head. He's not shinning people.
Yeah,
And
he's a weird one, Jose Aldo, being so technically adept at everything except like the most
landing the
irregular
punches in the right place.
Have fun figuring that one out.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I feel Topuria, even if he wasn't as accurate as he is, he's obviously a very like tremendous puncher, and you can tell by his mechanics are so good.
Mm-hmm.
He has very good mechanics, and the biggest punchers in MMA are guys that like have that marriage between like natural speed, good mechanics, and the placement. Topuria's skill set to Wei Li. I think Wei Li is too late into her career to like absorb a whole skill set like that. It would be awesome, but you cannot teach that much boxing to a fighter that is a finished product already. I would say, even to a sponge, a prodigy like Wei Li would be very hard. Okay. Okay, we're taking a few more, I think. So if you guys have anything else. Or we'll have to talk about more Derrick Lewis here.
I mean, we could skip to 318 instead because I got nothing I want to say about that card.
Yeah, for sure. A 318 is not a great card.
It has some good stuff, but yeah, looking at it,
it's like pretty dire, right? let me check. Okay, so Holloway versus Poirier is like no complaints. Like
no
it's that's probably going to be a good one. PFL Justin versus Topuria, yeah, that one is very interesting because like because of the leg kicks and the clinch by Gaethje.
I would do Gaethje up to the Poirier fight against Topuria would be fascinating, genuinely, like a serious test of like Topuria's like gas engine under very very high duress.
Yeah, for sure. I think that Gaethje improved a lot as a boxer, but lost a lot of the other things that were making him so dangerous. I really wish we saw like Gaethje make those like boxing improvements and kept on the pressuring path. He was taking so much damage.
It's crazy he like converted from like one style to another and still maintained eliteness. But like there was no like way to like cohesively merge those because he's just not that guy. And it's led to some weird like inconsistencies and uniformities because like there are moments where you can tell like he's trying to merge them together, like has tied the lessons together, but then other times he just doesn't. And it's like it's there was a problem before, and now it's the opposite problem. There was too much initiative was killing his gas tank and forcing him to fight at a rope that would burn at both ends and hope he could win out. And now it's the opposite problem. He lacks a lot of initiative as far as controlling fights the way.
And then when he tried to pressure against Holloway, it was like he didn't look like the old Gaethje.
No.
So 318, what else does it have? I mean, Holloway versus Poirier is going to be fun. It's going to be good. But then we have like some puzzling decisions. Michael Johnson is getting killed by Daniel Selhuber for whatever reason.
So glad we both agree Paulo Costa is not going to show up to Roman Kopylov.
Oh, that fight sounds so fun. I'm so mad that it's not a real fight.
Yeah.
Because Paulo Costa is not a real fighter. He doesn't exist.
That is true. I always forget if Kyler Phillips is entertaining or not because I'm confusing him with someone else constantly.
Kyler Phillips is an MMA lab guy. He's like very well-rounded but kind of annoying. Vinicius Oliveira, if you haven't seen, he's a lot of fun.
Coolio.
Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull is interesting.
Ooh, okay. All right. Yeah, I mainly care about the main event. Maybe Costa, Kopylov if they show up, and
there's not a lot else.
Yeah,
man.
I don't give a shit about the rest of this.
Like why are we having Kevin Nelson?
Will Hunter Nelson fall for the Neil Magny clinch hypnosis? We will find out.
Historically, the Gunnar Nelson kind of guys, they usually just take Magny down and submit him, but Gunnar Nelson looked ancient against Kevin Holland, man.
Yeah. Remember how Gunnar Nelson said, "I'm going to out grapple Damian Maya," and then was competitive for a round and then got his ass kicked.
And yeah, Maya was like sonning him. But I respect that. I respect that Gunnar Nelson made no attempt to keep it on the feet. I mean, it was stupid, but I respect it.
I respect it. It made for a round of very fun things, and then he died.
By the way, we're having Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez in 2025 for whatever reason.
Awesome.
What's your theory on why Danny Ige is so bad tactically? I feel like he's worse strategically. I feel like he can be sharp tactically here and there, Danny Ige, but he's like, he never quite knows what to do initially in a fight, and he kind of like has to figure it out inside the cage. And I don't know why, because he fights with Nixic, who I think is pretty sound when it comes to coming up with this strategy. So it's maybe something personal about Danny Ige.
Yeah, I think I my issue is the same. I think Ige is just weird about initiative. Like he like has to feel kind of out a lot of ranges, which either results in him getting hit a lot or him just kind of being able to just go fuck it, and sometimes it works.
Yeah, the thing with Ige is that he's very skilled everywhere, but he's stuck being like a very short guy that doesn't have a good jab or setups to his takedowns.
Yeah, he
So
doesn't have
like,
much of a ranged game either, if memory serves me right.
He's like stuck, like doing like insanely big movements against people who have reach on him. So, but sometimes works. Do you think Nixic is spread too thin since he's coaching multiple fighters? There's a chance, man. There's a chance. Like there's only so much time, so maybe game planning for so much fighters is like costing him. I feel like the Nixic style is like he comes with like pretty like broad stroke strategies, and then the rest is like tactics. So he's the kind of coach that can make that work. But I still think that there's a point of diminishing returns for sure.
We were asked about Kamzat versus Dreykus.
Oh, all right. I really have to watch tape yet. Because, but at the end of the day, it comes a lot to physicality. I feel it depends if Hamzat can be big brother, even if for a moment at Dreykus. He might be able to do a lot actually, because Chimaev is monster.
Yeah, Chimaev is a freak. Being able to hold Usman down like that, I cannot express how actually insane that is.
And he might handle the Whitaker too. So.
Yeah, so I think it's a weird one because like we have seen Brunson kind of hold Dreykus down for a little bit. But also Dreykus is amazing at like finding things that work and sticking with them, and kind of being great at dragging guys into bizarro world. And even then, there's been moments where Chimaev can be a bit messy, despite being great at seeking his A game. So it really just depends upon that physicality and if. Like,
and the other thing is that for all his technical flaws, Dreykus usually comes into fights with a pretty nice idea about what he wants to do.
Yes, and looking for ideas too.
And when the fight progresses, he's actually good at sticking what's good. So I'd say like Dreykus is like the smartest dumb fighter of all time.
Yeah,
or maybe like the dumbest smart fighter of all time.
He is officially dumb condit 0.5. Do not ask how that works.
Would Bautista versus Merab be a good fight? I would be very interested about that because Bautista is a very solid wrestler, has insane cardio, and he's a long hitter. So I would like to see that. He's for sure a better wrestler than O'Malley. So yeah, I thought Bautista looked very good against Patchy Mix, but at the same time, Patchy Mix looked kind of off in that one. I mean, not off. He looks like he usually does, but it was clear that it was a very bad matchup for him, and he couldn't adjust. So But I like Bautista, even though he was a terrorist that one time against Aldo.
Yeah.
uh,
Speaking of previous terrorism and exaggerations, I speak for the club and the masses that we have decided, due to Brandon Royval's performance in the Josh Van fight, that we are giving him partially for the Moreno 2 fight.
oh yeah, he's going. No, I think he's completely redeemed.
He's redeemed himself.
We can pretend that the second Moreno fight didn't ever happen.
Agreed.
It was so bad. It was bafflingly bad.
How do you throw that much and it's so boring? It's incredible.
How do you have both of those fights in your career?
The funniest, my favorite comment of that fight was actually from me, where I was like, I am begging Brandon to use a lead hook. No, I'm talking about both of them.
It was surprising because Royval looked insanely bad, and he was not the worst looking fighter in that fight.
He was the one doing more things too. But yeah, Royval is exonerated. That's the thing. So
Moreno is not exonerated yet.
Exactly.
Would you rather see Whaley versus Birna or Val? I'm actually interested in both. I actually think that Birna deserves a title shot. But if Whaley is fighting Valentina, I think that Birna should get an interim against someone else. That would be my if I had to choose. What do we have? Are those is Dustin versus Holloway and Rikus versus Chimaev the only main events announced for the for pay-per-views for the rest of the year?
I have no idea. Let me look. Whitaker is fighting the Riddler, which every time I said Riddler, damn it. I can't help it. That's funny.
That one, as a Whitaker fan, that one has me scared as shit.
Yeah, Whitaker's been playing on margins for a while. Delonzi versus Fluffy. Oh, Fluffy might kill him. I hope he does.
I hope so, man.
Yeah, Dreykish Chimaev is announced. Johnny Walker versus Zhang. Oh, Jesus.
I mean, Johnny Walker is going to die, so I support.
Yeah.
Those
I think that's for the pay-per-views. I see a bunch of random main events. They announced
but
Lopez Silva.
Imavo is fighting Caio Borralho too, but
yeah. I saw in the Walker Zhang card they matched Ortega versus Sterling, I guess.
I have a question for you. Do you have any early thoughts about Diego Lopez versus John Silva?
Oh gosh, let me think. Okay, so how familiar am I with John Silva? So I think Lopez surprised me a little bit versus Volk because he's kind of a tank with coming forward and looking for ideas and counters and stuff. Silva is weird because he's reliant upon kind of he's like some weird reincarnation of Yoel Romero, except at featherweight.
With more volume, but yes.
But with weirder ideas. But
even weirder ideas somehow.
But somehow the same uncanny idea of how to manipulate rhythm and shit, which is exactly why I think people probably like him. I don't know. I think it'll probably be a car crash at first, and whomever gets through that first round better is gonna win that.
It's interesting too because both guys usually don't face someone as physical as each other. So, and we saw that Diego Lopez against an old version of Volkanovski, but he was still the physical guy in that fight, which against Volkanovski being that is kind of insane, right?
Yeah, I mean Volk manhandled him in that grappling sequence, but Lopez made it harder for the rest of the fight pretty consistently. I think durability helped as well. Jared Cannonier is fighting MVP.
Yeah. I don't know who did that, man.
That's good, dude.
That's insane, man.
That's so good. I don't even know where to start. That's so good.
It's going to be a car crash either way.
Yeah.
Okay, James Kendrick says, will BJ Penn and John Jones go Chris Benoit?
Dude, if anybody's gonna get Chris Benoit in this
It's either
fucking
of
world,
those.
yeah. I'm gonna take John Jones first because he's too much of a fuck up, and honestly, I think Phil McKenzie said it the other day. I was having a conversation with Rubush about what if Jones has already killed somebody, and he's like, no, that would never happen. Jones is a dumb criminal. Like, yeah,
Yeah, there's no way that John has killed anyone
he's
and he hasn't
but
been found out.
he is the biggest fuck up ever though, so don't be surprised. It
He
might be
makes everything public though, so
yeah, and Penn, who fucking knows? He's all over the place. I think he's
Peter.
probably.
No, go on. Excuse me.
I think Penn is more likely to probably get institutionalized before he goes Benoit. Personally.
Hopefully. Peter Sauter says, dumb question. What if Cody Garbrandt fought Jose Aldo? Right now, I feel like Garbrandt has a decent shot of killing him early, but if
No.
not,
He said
Aldo.
fought like Jose Aldo.
Huh?
He said fought like Jose Aldo, not fought.
Oh,
Jose.
he would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Anyone would be fantastic if they fought like Jose Aldo, but Garbrandt is one of like the best equipped to fight like Jose Aldo just because he's so insane.
Actually, yes.
He's just a freak, just like Aldo, so it would work. I feel like Topuria is like, what if Cody Garbrandt was like actually smart? Because he's showing up with those like very strong boxing fundamentals, but actually doing the smart shit with them. And he's also like super athletic and has the wrestling background, so it's like kind of similar.
Somewhat similar, yeah, just more predicated based upon pressure than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, Cody was a lot more about like neutral space to get the counters.
Yeah. And not to mention had a very inconsistent jab, unfortunately.
No, which is a shame because when he threw it, it looked beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Cody could have been like so good, but he kind of picked for what I think that the two losses to TJ actually derailed his career. He was never the same, and then he started like piling up like insecurities and injuries. But if you go back, like Garbrandt, one of the most talented MMA fighters that we ever seen.
Yeah.
Very complete when it comes to talents, because very talented as a grappler too. Like have like the way he like reversed like Dominic Cruz from the takedowns in that fight, the way that he took Dominic Cruz down in transition.
I will never forget, like, this is before I knew how to actually watch this shit. I will never forget Cruz hitting like the sickest, most perfectly timed like counter takedown I've seen in my life.
He just
reversed that.
It was so sick, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's leave out with the ghost question with the last one. Closing thoughts on Kevin Ayo.
I'm going to tell the story of how Kevin Iole blocked me. So Kevin Iole announced a few years ago that he was no longer working for Yahoo Sports, and I suggested he work for Barstool because he'd fit right in. So that got me blocked. But my general opinion on Iole is I've never seen a sadder Labrador who needs to be put down ever. And just to emphasize how egregious that statement is, I love Labradors.
Oh my god, man. I think the big like, and I know I only had like a career in boxing journalism before being the official bootlicker of the UFC, but I think his biggest piece of legacy should be where he said that Dana White should step briefly outside of the sport because he hit his wife. And that you gotta understand that he's living through a lot of pressure per Dana White.
Yeah, I historically, like, just so you guys know, a bit of TMI. So I work in the actual like mental health field. So many clientele we have are like people who have been abused and stuff. domestically, sexually, etc. And I'm just telling you flat out that like there's a reason I'm not a very aggressive like guy on lines like in Twitter platforms, but there is a reason I went after a few reporters when they said shit it or pretending they weren't going to do shit about this. But yeah, I only should never be taken seriously again. And if anyone felt sad or respects the fact that he's retiring, then well, you know what? I'm happy they liked worshiping a skeleton looking motherfucker at the end of the day.
Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. I think that's the one that we're going to leave as the closing statement of the podcast. So I'll ask you if you want to promote anything, but I promote for you. Go and read the Topuria article that Dan wrote. Is very good. It's very very good. I sadly like read it like way after the fact because I was writing my own preview for the fight. But yeah, go check that out. Please go follow Dan on Twitter at typewritingda. Um, if you want to check someone out that no one looked, but it was actually turned out to be correct, go check out my video about Pantoja, Kaikara France, and the kicks in that matchup because it turned out that it was still true after 9 years. So you can check that out. Um, and yeah, go follow me. Follow this channel, please. Comment, subscribe, all of that. If you want to check my rewatch with technical notes of Topuria versus Oliveira, you can head over to Patreon, the Patreon of the fight site. There's that, and there's like weekly content. I've been very consistent lately with that, so check that out too. Dan, do you have anything else you want to promote?
I won't be able to produce articles the same like insane like workload I did a few years ago. I do not know how I fucking did that. But I'll produce things every time and again. They'll usually be over what I want. I'll give a couple of previews for stuff that I have in mind. So, I have a project that I want to write about Jan. I have a project I want to write about Adesanya.
Okay.
I want to review the Hendricks Lawler duology because they're my favorite dynamic in MMA history because they're weird. And fight one's my favorite MMA fight ever. I have a couple of ideas in mind, but I'm very picky about who I write about, what I write about, etc. Because I really, really am obsessed with having original statements. And that's both a blessing and a curse. I'll probably be writing about some historical boxers, may look at some more kickboxing stuff. But yeah, it's definitely not going to be a very like constant output kind of thing. But I'll always be talking stuff, and I'm always very open to people sharing their stuff with me, asking for feedback, etc. So always reach out anytime.
For my part, I'll try to do something this week off that it's more like a general topic because I usually like following the UFC schedule and that's like very time consuming. So, but I've been wanting to make something about the jab in MMA for ages. So maybe I'll get to do the first part of that. And I might be like turning some things into videos. Maybe my article about elbows, which has been very popular. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for joining. I think we had a great chat. Maybe me and Dan will talk about Holloway versus Poirier if that's an interesting fight, and we can give like some thoughts because both of those guys are very near to our hearts. So we might be talking about that. As I said, go follow Dan. He's always like, if he's not sharing like super cool clips from boxers from the before Christ, he's
My goal is to find you the worst and best you've ever seen, even if you can't fucking see what's going on.
And go follow me because I post like a bunch of clips all the time.
Yeah, follow him because he's a better public speaker than I am.
Okay, thank you so much, guys, and that's it. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.